Good morning, everybody. All right, I used to teach, taught for 36 years, so let's stand up, stretch a little bit. Come on. Stand up, stand up. Come on, I know you're old, but you ain't that old. Come on now. All right. Then we're going to start with this homework I gave at the exhibition opening. Okay, you can all sit down. Thank you. So first of all, before I start, thank you for coming out. I want to thank Studios Inc., especially the staff. Jade, Alec, Mallory, Terry. I want to thank my studio assistant, Vivian. I want to thank this young man, Chezzy. He's been very helpful, inspiring, because I am not a decorator. I knew what I wanted to do in here, but you all remember when I first put the furniture in here, how it looked. It's like, this guy must never have company, but they navigated it. They moved it around. So the setup, the way it's set up and arranged, that ain't me. That's them. That's them. So thank you very much. And if I might invite you over sometime to do my house. But and all this furniture I got from the Adelante thrift store, and including that roll top desk. But I will tell you that piano back there is going home after this exhibition. Definitely going home because it is in tune. And what else do I want to talk about? Starting from the thrift store. Adelante thrift store, 38th State Avenue. It's connected to the Adelante church that's on 18th Street. But the thrift store is very nice, very clean. I like it. It's close. So I had to get a U-Haul, actually, and a crew to move all that in here. So that's what I did. This exhibition, and the reason I went with the furniture, because this exhibition really talks about, it really is my reflection on 50 years ago, the 1970s, when I was 50 years younger. I'm 61 now, be 62 in a few weeks. And I was a kid that grew up in the 70s. There was a theater by my house called The Cameo that showed blaxploitation flicks, like Blackula, Five on the Black Hand Side. They call them blaxploitation. It depends on what you call it. Black Caesar, like this painting here, the saint with the yellow, that's called Saint Willie Dynamite. And there's a movie called Willie Dynamite. He was a pimp with a heart of gold. He'll make sweet love to you at 10 o'clock at night, then he'll put you out on the stroll at midnight. He was that kind of a guy. And then straight back is the other saint that's based on Blackula. And Blackula, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, Blackula was not just a black Dracula. He was actually an African prince, Mama Walde, that had went to Transylvania and tried to get Count Dracula to end the slave trade. What did he get in return for his troubles? He got bit in the neck, locked in a coffin, and he was there for hundreds of years until somehow the coffin ended up in Los Angeles in the 1970s. So now he's back on the streets. But the amazing thing about that movie is that he met a woman that he believed was his princess from way back when he got locked at Dracula's house. And that's basically the gist of the movie. He's searching for his princess. It's like a love story. And I say that because a lot of these movies that I reference in my work, as a kid, we went to go see Blackula because he's biting folks in the neck and throwing folks off balconies. He also had a woman, that kind of stuff. We was into that. But as we look back older, we realize that those filmmakers wove these messages of empowerment and rebellion into the art. It's like Richard Pryor, back then we laughed hard, but now when you listen to him, it takes on a whole different meaning and stuff like that. But before we go any further, how many people did the homework? Shame. Number one, after Blank experienced the Bop gun, he was finally able to what? Anybody here listen to Parliament? Sir Nose Devoid of Funk. Sir Nose Devoid of Funk was a character that was popular in Parliament songs. And we just thought it was some corny stuff. But later I saw a documentary called 5 Conversations About Soul, where George Clinton explained Sir Nose Devoid of Funk represented disco music. Computer-generated music without any soul, without any presence, without anything. And that's why, interestingly enough, Prince himself said Parliament Funkadelic was probably Parliament Funkadelic and Joni Mitchell were his biggest musical inspirations. I know somebody should get this one. That's what these last cans of Colt 45 are for, if you get these right. When I taught in high school, you know, we would throw out a candy bar or a bag of chips for kids who got the questions right, but we grown. We throwing out malt liquor. Number 2, smart people know that blank is greasy. Raise your hand if you know. Yes. What's that? Fat meat is greasy, sir. What's your name? All right, yeah. You get a can of Colt 45. All right, how many of you heard the song Aqua Boogie? Chezzy, you can't get no beer. I'm sorry. How many of you heard the song Aqua Boogie? Okay, it's a Parliament Funkadelic song, very popular in 1978 when it was coming out. In fact, I used to go to their concerts. One of the lines is, can you swim underwater and not get wet? Can you swim? And you know, at the time we thought, they just grooving. But actually think about that. He was speaking to social conditions. Can you swim underwater and not get wet? Can you, as some would say, can you be in the world and not of the world? Can you be surrounded by toxicity, but you're not toxic? You know, that's what Blacktacularity is about. When I talk about the Blacktacular arts and sciences, Black people have had this phenomena where we're able to take the worst things thrown at us and turn them into art. In other words, it's like they say, if your life gives you lemon, make lemonade. It's interestingly, the lemonade that we make is so sweet that people want to buy it. And then they want to claim they made it too. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting. Right now, there's a resurgence in soul food, right? If you go on Amazon, you see all these books on soul food, but then take a look at the authors. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. Anybody can make soul food, but I would have a little more confidence in somebody. I mean, if you were born and raised in Maine and you went to Hartford and all of that, you know what I'm saying? You know. Number 4, we are one what under a groove? God, raise your hands, students. Who? No? One nation under a groove, Funkadelic. All right, make sure you don't get none now, all right?
Can't share.
You can't share that. Oh, this is a good one. How many people grew up in a Black home? You know this one. A hard head makes a what behind? A hard head makes a soft behind. I heard that many a time. And especially that fat meat is greasy saying. I use that on some of my artwork because I heard that a lot. And basically it means if you do something, in other words, if you play stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes. You know, in fact, I know a whole nation right now is going to find out that fat meat is greasy. They're going to find out. We're going to find out. We've been finding out, but we still don't believe it. We got grease dripping off our hands and lips, and we still don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Number 6, if the Lord is blank and the creek don't rise. If the Lord is blank, willing, yes. If the Lord is willing and the creek don't rise. All right, this is number 7 is one. You get one. All right, down to the last one. Number 7. I didn't hear this one until I was in my 20s. And the first time I heard it, I think I was going to go somewhere. I was going to go to a party or something. I don't know. My dad, you got to be back home by 10. I didn't really like going to parties anyway, so yeah, I'll be back by 9, actually. But, and I know some of these parties go on till like 2 or 3 a.m., and my dad was like, the only thing open after 2 a.m. is legs. That was it. So if your man is out after 2 a.m., trust me, he ain't, you know, so that's an old one. Number 8, all I have to do is blank, blank, and die. Yeah, go ahead. Die. I heard that one. All I got to do is stay black and die. This is a part of Blacktacularity. These tropes, these sayings that are a part of our culture. Number 10, I was born at night, but not last night. Oh, all right. I was born at night, but not last night. Number 11, if you can you can what? Hear. If you can you can hear. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. If you can you can hear. He, she is blanking themselves. Now, don't be nasty now. Come on, ain't like that. Don't be nasty now. Feeling themselves. That's it. They feeling themselves. That's when somebody's starting to think they're more than what they are, and they about to find out. Number 13, I jumped off the porch late. That's a part of blacktacularity. And we all heard number 14, don't let your mouth write a check that your backside can't cash. And of course, the classic one, number 15, is God don't like ugly. God don't like ugly. And here's an extra credit one. Anybody here a cinephile besides me? You know, it's a funny thing. I have a cell phone, and those of you who have texted me know that I will probably respond 5 days later because I keep forgetting I have a cell phone, because I have a landline still, and I'm expecting the landline to ring. So I'm giving an art talk, and the phone, which hasn't rang in weeks, rings. So the last one, why is there a space between Lyons and Spakowski? Lyons and Spakowski. I would encourage you to watch a movie starring Denzel Washington called Fallen in 1998. And if you find the answer, send me an email. I'm going to read a short letter that I wrote to my younger self, which is inside this zine that I made, zine. And this is a letter I wrote actually sitting at that table right back there. Is Hannah here today? Okay, she was actually sitting at the end when I wrote this. But this is a letter to my younger self. Dear younger self, I know it is not easy. Because you prefer books and the blues to sports and girls, people call you weird, strange, touched, and different. Family talks about you like you're not even in the room. But I encourage you to keep drawing, making your own comics, watching old movies, and listening to funk. It will keep you long after these people are no longer in your life. Stay kind, stay gentle, stay non-judgmental. You will realize that the only person you need is the best version of yourself. You will be glad you put forth intention to be a good person. It will help you age with a clear conscience and no regrets. People will come and go, but the art will always be here. I see you spend a lot of time in your room or at the library. I know why. One day you will understand that your mother has untreated mental illness, and will attempt suicide multiple times. Give her grace. You will understand why your dad is so distant. Give him grace. In fact, give everyone grace. Nobody asked to be here. In the meantime, keep drawing, keep listening to the funk and being creative. One day you will find that Blackula was actually a love story about a black prince seeking his long-lost princess. One day you will see that Parliament Funkadelic were actually prophets. One day you will see that James Baldwin should be added to the biblical canon. One day you will see that your soul and spirit are worth protecting. One day you will see that it is really up to you to make the best of your life, your older self in 50 years. So this exhibition is, if those of you who follow me on social media for years know, I always talked about, if I ever was able to plan my own exhibition, we're going to have Church's Chicken. We're going to have Colt 45. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to have disco music. We're going to have a ball. And we did exactly that at the opening. How many people came to the opening? How many people came to the opening? How many people had a good time? It was fun. So that's what this artwork is all about. This one is a reflection on, I often say the best barbecue is not found in the main drags. You find it in the side streets, in the back alleys. In fact, if you go out like on a Friday night in July or August around 10 o'clock at night, you go around 22nd and Wabash, 14th, all these back streets, those guys grilling in the back late at night, that's the best barbecue. So this one is the grill man from Kansas City, Kansas, who probably makes his own barbecue sauce. You really don't want to know what's in that sauce. You know, that fork that they use to flip the meat over, he also uses it as a back scratcher. I'm just telling you that right now. If you're dating a guy and you notice he barbecues a lot and only got one fork, I can tell you what else is being used for. That's a reflection on preacher man. I mean, you got all kinds of preachers in the city. You know, you got the well-educated preachers, but you got the guys that stay outside the liquor store. There's some good preaching outside the liquor store, trust me. There's an old saying, a drunk mind tells the sober truth. If you want to hear it blunt, talk to an intoxicated person, but you're probably going to end up hearing more than what you want to hear. But there's the preacher man, and a lot of that, you got the shotgun house, and preacher man in the city, some call him the jackleg preacher, some call him the bootleg preacher. He's probably mispronouncing stuff. But I tell you what, he got a story to tell. And so there he is with his waiter's coat and might not even have a shirt on. This one here is a reflection on black-tacularity, which I just simply see what I said before, turning lemons into lemonade, or as I might quote from Tupac Shakur in the song Dear Mama, where it said, Mama took the little she had been given and made miracles every Thanksgiving. That's black-tacularity. Taking these things, for example, there was these kids in New York in the late mid-70s, they couldn't afford musical instruments. The school district didn't have no money. So they started banging on garbage cans and they started making music with their mouth. And then the next thing you knew, you had the Fat Boys, you had Biz Markie. They created an entire musical genre that we call hip hop. And a lot of it was founded when people they had lemons and they made lemonade. Same with the blues. If you listen to older blues guys like Lightning Hopkins, that guy that sang that song, John the Revelator, what was his name? Some of those blues musicians only had like one or two strings on their guitar. They took what little they had and made it work. You study the jazz movements of the 50s and 60s, and a lot of these musicians had to do what was called the Chitlin circuit because they could not stay in certain hotels in the South. So there was a network of homes where the musicians would stay and get good food. Civil rights movement too. They took what they had, Tulsa, and all these places. So these are some sayings. For example, a lot of black folks are very religious, so they don't take the Lord's name in vain. They don't take the Lord's name in vain. So instead of saying God damn, they say got damn. It's hotter than chicken grease. They claim that somehow is not cussing, but But there you go. That's an old saying. And I got black shiny things, and I got down here, it's a black-tacular thing. I included a piece from a comic book. I believe this was a graphic Luke Cage novel, and a playing card. Because how many of you know how to play spades? I'm probably the only black person in Kansas City that never learned to play spades. You don't know? Because we got to take some spades classes. Yeah, I know. Don't take my black card because of that, please. This painting straight back is called Lord Have Mercy, because I remember something we don't remember much anymore, and that was after Sunday afternoon, the big dinner at Big Mama's house. In my case, it was my Aunt Mabel, who lived off of Victor. And this was old school, and my mom and her sister would actually go the night before and spend all day cooking, and then come home. And the next day we went there on major days like Father's Day, Mother's Day, but there would just be this huge feast. And they had this big, huge house on Victor. And this, it's different then. The kids were banished. We were all either in an upstairs room eating or in a back room. And everybody would eat. The adults all ate at the table. And then the ladies would sit there and, after they ate and do it gossiping, men would all go in the living room and watch the NFL game. And the kids would be until we all ended up getting in a fight with each other, then everybody had to go home. But if you look at that menu on there, you had cornbread, you had chicken, you had collard greens, you had, I can't see it all from here, peach cobbler. You had red drink. I didn't put rum and Coke on there. You always had that uncle that would show up with that little bottle in his jacket and think nobody can see that he's actually putting alcohol in his, He was the one that got exciting, though, later in the day. And another interesting thing about them is, truth be told, based on the way them folks treated us as kids, it'd be called child abuse today. If you had I wrote a short story how not to get your butt whipped at a black family function. I wrote that story and I said, if you made the misfortune of acting up at a dinner or a picnic and it was later in the afternoon and folks had a little alcohol in them, you weren't just going to get a whipping for what you did. You're going to get whipped for what that boss said earlier that week that made them mad. You're going to get whipped because they spilled their coffee earlier that week. And the aunts and uncles had no mercy. I remember one time, I must confess, I forgot. I think I threw something at my cousin Walter, a tennis racket or something. Got whipped. And my Uncle Henry, who was older, I was walking by Uncle Henry. He was about 80. He was like, my mom's name was Margaret. He didn't say much, but he had something to say today. Margaret tore that ass up, didn't she? That's how they were. So those are the kind of memories, it is what it is. But that's based on all that food that we used to eat at them dinners. And there was this thing that we called the itis. How many of you have ever heard of the itis? The itis is when all those carbohydrates start processing, and around 3 o'clock, all the men are in the living room are just laid out on the couch. Football game's still going. They knocked out. The only one that's not knocked out is that one uncle who's very health conscious. So he didn't need all of that. He ate a little bit. All the others were all gluttons. They just knocked out. They called that the itis. This piece that's next to my fellow artist, J.T. Daniels, that's brown, that says, don't let them steal your joy. And you know what? That is a universal thought because we all know how life is. We know stuff happens. We know that not everybody plays fair in the sandbox. But to be honest with you, that's been going on from the beginning of time. It's going to go on till the world ends, however it ends. So along the way, hang on to your joy. Even in the midst of all this, I try to post. If you read my social media, I say things like, I just hope you do something fun today. You don't have to be expensive, just something fun. Even if it's dancing in place for 30 seconds, I still watch the Three Stooges. Even anything to just laugh and have some joy in your life, because the world, as we say, life keeps lifing. The world is going to keep being what it is. I'd like to read this on this wall here. This is from a Funkadelic album, actually their first album, which is entitled Funkadelic. And what is soul? I think it's the last track on the album. It starts out with the sound of a spaceship, and it says, I am Funkadelic. I am not of this world. And then the song goes, what is soul? And these are some of the lyrics. What is soul? Man, I don't know, huh? Soul is rusty ankles and ashy kneecaps. I was a kid that grew up at a time when, we weren't really frank. I mean, they didn't shame us for not using lotion. Nowadays, you come to school with ashy elbows, they're going to say something. What is soul? Man, I don't know. Soul is chitlins fouillon. And that's actually a thing. I didn't know that, but people do actually make chitlins fouillon. What is soul? Man, I don't know, huh? Soul is a ham hock in your cornflakes. Oh, get down now. Yeah, and that's a really good song. Funkadelic. I listen to a lot of their music, Knee Deep, One Nation Under a Groove, because like I said, like the movies, there's a lot of social messages woven into that. And now 50 years later, I'm looking back at the same movies, the same TV shows, and realizing they were actually saying more than what I could digest at a time. And this is interesting. I thought about this. The 70s was an era of creativity, music, movies, acting. Unfortunately, most of those actors are now leaving us, James Earl Jones, Lou Gossett. But that's what happens in life. We all leave here. But it was a renaissance. But what happened exactly 50 years before that was the Harlem Renaissance. It was like 50 years detached. You had these artistic renaissances in Black community. Now we're 50 years detached from the 70s. And I'm seeing the same thing now. One of the most ironic things, though, is usually these renaissances of Black art in America have always preceded a massive economic collapse. Let's go back and take a look. That's something to think about. Or not necessarily a collapse, but a divergence between rich and poor. I mean, right at the end of the 70s, what did we get? And definitely, Harlem Renaissance ended right about the time of the stock market crash of 1929. Things to think about. Things to think about. This piece behind JT Daniels. Thank you, JT, for guiding me to pieces. Listen, and while I'm here, Terry, fine artist, thank you. I just want to thank my artist colleagues. Yvette Wilkins, Vivian, Alec, I don't want to miss nobody, Leon, Sun Park, Sun, thank you. And I'm gonna tell you something, just share this with you. I have to leave here and go straight to the airport. And my friend, Brother John's taking me. You know, it's good to have friends. A patron of mine, this guy had been buying artwork of mine since the 90s. He passed away on Labor Day. And he and his wife, now, I ain't never sculpted in my life like that. But he had, like I said, he had been buying my art since the 90s, back when I was selling art on eBay for 50 bucks. He was supporting me then. And trust me, I was flat broke. So that 50 bucks was 50 bucks. And what I did was I sold a lot of art on eBay and took that art, the money, and just used it to buy art supplies to make more art and learn, because I didn't go to art school. So eBay was kind of like my art university. I call it my tuition. I made these experiments, sold them for whatever I could get, took that money, went straight to Blick, Utrecht. Walmart had a nice art section back then. You get all the art supplies I could and doing it. So he passed, and they wanted me to make the urn. Didn't know what I was doing. So thank you very much. I commissioned, we worked together. It's a beautiful urn. And I had this thought before she even asked me, can you literally just bring the urn and present it at the memorial service? I was like, yeah, sure. You know, I don't like flying. So of course, you know, me being, you know, cheap, I was looking at bus tickets, plane tickets, but I just couldn't do a 3-day bus trip. I rode the bus once to Chicago. I rode Megabus. Anybody ever rode Megabus? When they had that, you've heard the stories, yet they're all true. I rode the Megabus. I was like, my Lord. My son was with me. He was like 10 years old. He was like in a state of shock by the time we got to Chicago. So that's what I'm doing today. But I just wanted to point that out, that I feel blessed that I have such a strong artistic community around me. Great artists, great people, not just good artists, but good people. And that's one of the beautiful things of retirement, that you can choose who you want to be around. There's some people that I work with now. I ain't taking your Facebook requests. I ain't having coffee with you because I know who you are. I worked with you. But that's one of the beautiful things, is that at this point in life, I can work with good people. So I often tell people, I know teaching is rough, but it's one of the few professions left where you got a pension, and a good pension too. So remember that when them kids get on your last nerve, just think pension one day. Let's see, this piece where it says Art in America with the purple background. You know, I just realized, you know, I went on a series that said, we are the art in America. We are the art in America. And a lot of that was inspired by my studio assistant. He used to talk to me a lot about, we used to talk a lot about it, about just art and stuff like that. And just how Black culture has contributed so much to America's, what's our number one export right now, really? Entertainment and sports. What is the color of the vast majority of our number one export? There you go. We are the art in America. And it's not like saying nobody else is. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we have contributed so much to American culture, so much to Western culture, that you really couldn't have Western culture without the contributions of African Americans. Despite the struggle, put it this way, you ain't gonna have the lunch without the lemonade, and we bring the lemonade. The piece next to that is from the Complex Narrative series, which includes fabric and stuff like that. And it's a reflection on the complexity of the Black experience. I often tell people that my work is about simultaneously navigating the complex and contradictory narratives that Black people have to navigate in America, not just externally, but internally. Not just externally, but internally. I grew up in the 70s where our projections of the Black family were good times. Sanford and Son. Well, what about all these folks was poor? And the only one that wasn't poor was who? George Jefferson. And you saw how he acted. So that was one narrative. Then in the 80s, and I know what's happened since then, but then we had the Cosby Show, which gave us a different narrative of Black people being professionally successful, but not acting foolish in public for everybody. So there are these complex narratives that have been back and forth. I remember an Oprah Winfrey show where a person was, this is in the 80s, and people were talking about how much they didn't want Black people in their neighborhood and everything, but they were okay with Michael Jordan. They were okay with Magic Johnson, but they wouldn't be okay with just a regular Sam or Joe. These complex narratives where you're acceptable, you're celebrated if you're athletic, if you're this, if you're contributing this, if you're contributing that. And then the narrative come along with the Cosby Show in a different world and other shows that said, well, no, it's more than that. We're also doctors, we're also lawyers. And that's why I've included, and I watched this when I was a kid. I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, when I saw Jet Magazine, I went straight for the pinup. That was it. I just opened it right to the middle. And, I remember the barber shop I went to, they would literally have the pinups just all the way around the perimeter of the barber shop. It was just something else, just in the 70s. But I would also read the articles because I like to read. And what Jet Magazine did is it celebrated the accomplishments of African Americans, not just in entertainment, but other fields. If you look through Jet Magazines, you will see announcements of somebody came out of medical school, or somebody got promoted to this job, or somebody got promoted to that job. And the interesting thing is, about a year ago, Sherry Liddy brought a collector through whose family owned Jet Magazine. They own this magazine now. And I already knew because I follow all of this. I said, I know your dad. What? I never met him, but I know his dad was Junior Bridgman, who played basketball with the Milwaukee Bucks. You remember Junior Bridgman? Junior was good too in the 1970s. And now their family owns Jet and Ebony magazine, and we talked for a long time. He didn't buy a painting, all that money, didn't buy a painting. But at this point in life, it ain't even really about that anymore. So, it was good though. So that's why I included the Jet magazines, the Ebony magazines. I also love to play chess. I still love. I just can't find nobody to play with me anymore. But I got 2 chess sets actually. I got a chess set on the table because I just love to play chess. And well, we're going to play then. Get that rust off. If you rusty, I'm covered in rust. So we did that. And over here, I have some books and letters because I love to read. I love to write. I write short stories all the time. Sometimes I share them online. Sometimes I don't. That Invisible Man book, I couldn't find mine, and JT graciously loaned me his copy for the exhibition. And the piano in the back, underneath the man playing chess, sitting in bed playing chess. I used to play the piano growing up, got away from it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that piano's going in my house when this exhibition's over. And most of this furniture, and let me just put this out here while I'm here, listen. I don't have room in my house for this furniture, and most of it's in pretty good shape. So if you know anybody who needs furniture, when this exhibition is over, this furniture will be available. I ain't gonna charge them, except the piano. And that dining room table, I got that, and it's good. It's solid. It's 200, but I'll still, if you know anybody, I'm just saying, it could use it. This is around the holiday season. People don't have stuff, but if you know somebody that could use some furniture in their home that's gently used, please let me know. We'll get that furniture to them. Okay, make sure I'm not running over. But I'm a teacher and I'm older, and so I can talk all day. How us old dudes are, talk and talk. These pieces, I like post-apocalyptic movies. I like Warriors. How many people have seen Warriors from 1979? Yeah, see. Okay, I know you've seen Blade Runner. Damnation Alley, I just love post-apocalyptic movies. So these helmets were actually, all of this is from found objects or discarded objects. I got these helmets at the thrift store, and this one's got nails and CDs. And I had this fantasy in my head of, let's just say, aliens came to Earth in the year 5000 AD, and they were going through the rubble of a culture that rose up in the ashes of the Blackocalypse, which is a book I wrote, The Blackocalypse, which is like a post-apocalyptic event. But after it, this art-based culture arose, like because the power grid was gone, everything, and they found these type of helmets. That would be cool if people found stuff like that. And it's like this one has screws on it, caps. Some of them got bullets on it, Afro picks. So it's a kind of a thing here because, first of all, I like working with found objects. And secondly, I like science fiction. I love science fiction. How many of you have read, Octavia Butler's book, Parable of the Sower? Tell you about Parable of the Sower real quick. Parable of the Sower talks about a dystopian future that takes place when an authoritarian dictator becomes president. The story of the book takes place in 2024. I'm not saying this is, it's science fiction. Octavia Butler, one of the most pronounced science fiction writers, she's deceased now. Black lady too. And it talks about how you have these hyper empaths. It's about a young lady who's a hyper empath. She's more empathy than everybody else, but the whole world has grown so cold. I mean, you have these sicknesses and illnesses. People just really don't care as long as they got what they want. So you got a dystopian government, a authoritarian dictator. People don't give a care as long they'll go with anything as long as they get what they want. And you got this young lady who's an empath struggle. Guess when this book was written? 1993. The Parable of the Sower. It's a really good book. It is. And then there's a sequel called The Parable of the Reaper. Whatever you sow, thou shall you also reap. So I like that type of stuff. And so these here behind Miss Jade, in front of Miss Jade rather. Can you hear me? Good. These are actually busts that I got from I dug them out. Yeah, I dumpster dive. And then let me tell you something about that. One time I was dumpster diving in the 2000s at Blick. Yeah, the Blick up here. And I remember I fell into the dumpster. And it's hard to get out of them dumpsters. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I got these at the dumpster at the hair store on State Avenue. And so I just worked with them and made these helmets to go with them. And it's just like I like working from found objects because to me, it's like a blacktacular thing. You're taking the things other people no longer have to use. It's like soul food, chitlins. It was the pieces of the animal that whoever owned the plantation or whatever didn't want, the discards, the pig guts. They wanted the ribs, they wanted the beef, they wanted the T-bone, the ribeye. They didn't want the colon and the intestines. And they threw that out, so the people had to take that and make food from it. But then they found a way to season that stuff up. You know what I'm saying? And kaboom, there you go. Another instance of blacktacularity, I would say, is Prince. Prince didn't have a whole lot of money, if you read his story, but he won a contest where he got like a day or 8 hours of free recording time. And all he had was a synthesizer and a guitar. He made that demo. He sent it to Warner Brothers. They offered him a deal, but he said he wanted creative control. So there's no way. They come back 6 months later, okay, we'll give you creative control and $1 million. And there you go. He took what he had. That's what blacktacularity is. This show is entitled Dr. Blackenstein's Blacktacular Black Shack of Arts and Sciences. You don't have to be black to be blacktacular. You just got to be a person who's going to take whatever situation you're in and make the best of it. Because let's just be honest, bad stuff happens to everybody. Question is, what are we going to do with it? If somebody throws pig guts at you and that's the only food you have, are you going to starve to death? Or are you going to create a cuisine that later on they come back and like, man, how'd you make that? How'd you do that? And I'm gonna tell you, I know very well what I'm talking about because I've often said, it's just very interesting. And I'm just gonna share this personally. So many people that basically took a big doo-doo on my art dreams and goals 20 years ago. Now they all up in my inbox. But let me tell you how petty I am. Vivian knows this. Around 2001, I started a journal. When people said rude stuff about my art, I wrote exactly what they said, their name, and the date they said it. So now I just remind people. But you said, let's talk about that first. And if you ain't willing to walk it back, then, what's that song by Barry? Walk on by. You know what I'm saying? So that's just me. That's just me because as a teacher, I don't believe in denigrating someone else's dreams. So I'm just like a student. I'm sensitive to that. I would tell students the same thing. Man, if people are denigrating your dreams, you don't need them in your life. That's another part about Blacktacularity. I've seen people, one thing I love about my folks is that if we see someone is really, really foul, like the brothers I run with, we don't deal with deadbeat dads. If we know you a dude that you got kids, you ain't taking care of them, we ain't playing fool with you. We ain't having no drink with you. I don't even want to watch a football game. I wouldn't even want to use a toilet in your house. We stand together on stuff like that. That's a part of it too. Standing up for community, things of that nature. Okay, so the last thing as I wrap it up, and I'll take a few questions. I'm gonna read some of these things on the back of this. These are some things I wrote. Blackula is actually a love story. It is. Willie Dynamite was saintly, in a way. Lord have mercy is a high compliment. Trust me, if you feed somebody something you made, they're like, Lord have mercy. That's not an insult. That's a high compliment. Number 4, this may be up for debate, but I say the Black intellectual isn't dead, but most certainly on life support. And actually, that painting back above the desk is based on the Black intellectual. And there's a poem that I think it's online. That's a YouTube video called Death of the Black Intellectual. The best barbecue is found in small towns and dangerous neighborhoods. Number 6, we don't want to admit it, but we are all complicit. Number 7, Funkadelic equals profits. Number 8, there's good preaching at the liquor store. Trust me, real good. And let me let me detract. One of the most beautiful things about my opening was, I don't drink anymore, but there's a liquor store around the corner from my house called 13th Street Liquors. So I would go in there and maybe get one of them Delta THC drinks or something. So anyway, I went there and I'd been talking with the guy, actually, my friend Mark Cook made a painting of that liquor store, and it got published. I wrote an article in Casey's studio about the store because the mom and pop attached to it, for years, they've taken Polaroids of kids that buy candy, so it's like the Sistine Chapel. It's at 13th and Washington Boulevard. If you go into a little liquor store next to it, a mom and pop, it's just decorated with all these smiling faces of children buying candy. So I go there one day about 3 weeks ago, and the owner's not there. It's a Hindu guy running the register. I was like, what happened to? Oh, he retired. This dude just finally, he retired and sold the store and went on about his business. I walked out. I was like, what happened? He retired. So I was like, dang. And then guess who shows up at the opening? He does, with his wife. He had not forgotten. And we took some pictures in there and had a good time. And I'm going to be honest with you, it really makes me happy to see a person make it to retirement, because a lot of my friends did not make it for various reasons. So he showed up at the opening. So yeah, there's good preaching and my neighbors came too. They're both widows. They were both married to teachers. At one point, 3 of the 4 houses on my block were teachers. I'm the last one left. The other 2 have passed on, unfortunately. But they're widows, are good people. I look out for them. Got my phone number. If they hear some weird noises, they call me, and they showed up. They came out. And you know what? In these dangerous times, for older folks to come out here after dark, thank you. Because I don't even like going out after dark right now. Number 9, don't let them steal your joy, regardless of who you are. That's the thing I tell people. Hang on to your joy. You know what? If you got to get rid of folks to keep your joy, choose your joy. Because, Number 10, We Are the Art in America. And the last little drawing is from a Funkadelic song called, and this is from the early 1970s, Think, It Ain't Illegal Yet. I encourage you to listen to that. Think, It Ain't Illegal Yet. Well, with that, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. It's been, and if Studios Inc., let me say this. There's an extension program, but to be honest with you, I've got some health issues, and it's just getting harder and harder to make it from home. So I'm not going to do the extension. So my residency here ends in February, and I'll be back at home working in the basement, the dungeon. But I'll be honest with you, at this point in life, just being able to walk downstairs to work on art is a lot easier. You have to get in the car and navigate crate. And I drive the speed limit or below the speed limit. So, I'm not the most popular guy on the streets. I get cussed out. I get yelled at. I've been called the N-word, all of that, because I drive the speed limit. I don't drive fast. That's exactly how I've never had any tickets or been in an accident. So, but I am not feeling high interest insurance rates. James, you need a chair? No. All right. All right, well, I'll have to get up. Good to see you. It's one of my fellow Kansas City, Kansas artists, James Schiller. Okay, that's it. Unless anybody has questions. I have no more Colt 45, I'm sorry. Yes.
Have you ever considered painting, having a painting with the concrete work? Like you have your ebony and
I will now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. What they say, steel sharpens what? Or iron sharpens iron? Yeah. That's the cool thing about hanging around other artists. Trust me, artists are cool folk. Okay, yes, sir.
I don't know if we've talked about this before, not often, but do you have any plans for creating like some literature or like textbooks for students based on your artwork? And then what's your artist statement and your artist talk is about?
I've made lesson plans before. I don't think I would do a whole textbook. I do want to do like I'm working on a graphic novel actually, called The Many Saints of 13th Street, just about some of the people I grew up with and that at the time I didn't understand. There was a man up the street from me. His name was Harry Rawlings. That was the father. I can't remember the son's name. The son had actually been a prisoner in World War II in the Pacific Theater. He had been tortured. They had thought he was dead one time and threw him on a pile of bodies. And his parents were saying how his friends actually pulled him off and hid him till he recovered. So when he came back from World War II, he wasn't right in the mind. So he lived in their basement and he had dogs, and he was a nice guy. And I remembered some kid knocked me around in grade school a little bit. So I was out in the backyard punching on a pad or some kind of a plastic thing. He came in, well, what's going on? David? They call me by my middle name, David. I said, oh, some dude, boy, pushed me down. He said, here, let me show you a few things. So let's just say the next time the dude went to push me down, he got his nose broke. I look at him as a saint because he protected me from physical harm, despite everything he had been through. Well, despite everything he had been through. He never married. After his parents died in the 80s, I believe, he just kind of disappeared. We often wondered what happened to him. But he was a saint. And that's when I talk about these saint paintings. I just think a lot now. And it probably, I bet you what, I'm probably not the only older person that does that reflects on your past and realizes, I really didn't understand what that person was doing for me when I was a child or when I was little, or how they looked out for me. I encourage you to watch a movie by Dito Moniel starring Robert Downey Jr., Chaz Palmieri, Rosario Dawson, Shia LaBeouf, Channing Tatum, called A Guide to Recognizing My Saints. It's about a young man that grew up in Astoria, Queens. He was small, he was being bullied. And people tried to, and finally one of his friends just took the bully all the way out and ended up getting a lengthy prison sentence. And this young man was so tired of all of it that as soon as he got out of high school, he moved to LA. 15 years later, his mom says, "You need to come back, your dad is sick." And he's based on his book. And he said, coming back and retouching, he realized those were his saints. This friend of his did a 25-year stint to protect him from a bully. And he said, I realized that even though I left them, they never left me. So that's something I think about a lot. So that's the long answer to your question, JT. I'm working on a graph. Leon, how you doing?
Hey, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Based on,
Mm-hmm.
but before I ask the question, I want to say thank you for what you offered as an artist.
Thank you, sir.
I've learned from you in many different ways that you probably have to know. When you carry your practice as an artist, the moves you make as an artist. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, based on the events of this week, and you being a writer, what kind of things are you prompted to write?
Really just continue to reflect on the lessons I have learned, the good I have seen in people. There's a lot of people in this world that ain't so good, but there's a lot of good folk too. And just anything that I often tell people that the only person you really need is your best version of yourself. Really. Everyone else is dispensable. Everyone else is. I had somebody I know for 56 years came on my Facebook the other day with some racist stuff. They got the same permanent block everybody else does. Then they acted shocked. I was like, what you shocked about? You already knew what I was going to do. You know what I'm saying? I don't need you. I need my best version of myself. I need to live with myself. There's absolutely no way I'm going to stay friends with a person who wants physical harm on other people just based on their color, their religion, their sexual orientation. I don't want to be your friend. I don't need it. Good luck. That's about all I can have to give to you at this time. And that's it. So that's the things I would write about, things that force you to just, and of course, I'm a writer, so I write some crazy stuff, like short stories, just post-apocalyptic stuff. But generally, things that help people to look inside, look at your own soul, and say, this short little bit of time I have on this planet, what good can I do? What good can I do? I still live over on 14th Street in Kansas. I ain't trying to live in no mansion. This van I drive is actually 29 years old. I don't like to drive anyway, but I'm just saying is that, that's kind of what I write about, and really what I think about a lot is just, how can I be the best person I can be? Not just for myself, but just for other people, for the least amongst us. I've said a society is only as strong, is only as benevolent as they treat their most disadvantaged, not just your citizens, but other people. Those folks trying to flee despotic regimes and get here, they're just as human as we are. Nobody's illegal. And this is just the thing. My personal belief is nobody walking on this planet made this planet. This is all community property. When you think about it, how can we say we own something? We didn't even make it. It was here when we got here. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's us as people. And that's something else I write on, is human nature. There's a real, I don't know if it's, I think a lot of it's the wiring. I think a lot of it's programming. And I mentioned last week on a post is that, really, why are we surprised that the world is so violent when the majority of our entertainment is based around violence? I like Law and Order. I'm a faithful Law and Order watcher. I don't miss it. I was, if there was a school event, and I was heated if it was on a Thursday night, because I gotta be home at 7 to watch Law and Order. But I'll be honest, it always starts out somebody getting killed. And I don't fool with SVU. I can't do SVU. But I'm just saying, our music, there is so much violence in a lot of today's popular music and misogyny. It's just like, how can we be surprised about anything? Okay.
You said earlier that recognizing art as valuable, they kind of top down.
Yeah.
What internally motivated you to still stay true to yourself?
Oh, well, I kind of, it made me even want to be successful even more, just to show folks I could. I'm hard-headed. I ain't gonna lie. I can be very stubborn and hard-headed. And I enjoyed making it. And, it wasn't so much that people, because I remember one person actually said, I had sold a piece on eBay and somebody had said, people will buy anything. I was like, okay, all right. And now they wondering why I'm like, all right. I'm real cool on them. Like, all right, good. This is happening to me. Okay, well, God bless you. I just don't like that. And I really think a lot of that is my sensibilities as a teacher. And actually, I started out teaching as a missionary. I was in the Caribbean for 4 years. Y'all haven't seen poverty. We think we know what poor is. Y'all ain't seen poor. And that's what I'm saying. I've noticed that people who have actually been in a foreign country, this less, and I mean, I'm not the tourist traps. I'm talking about I was a missionary. There was an AIDS hospital. This is in the 80s. When basically, if you had AIDS in this country, you got abandoned. These folks died their family wouldn't even talk to them. They didn't even want to bury them. And they were good people. They just had AIDS. They just got it. It didn't matter to me how they got it. And frankly, even though I was a missionary, folks in church weren't much better because it seemed like they spent more time trying to find out how people got it than just treating them. But it just kind of really made me to be honest with you, it just made me say, you know what? Whether or not Jesus actually existed, for me, ain't even the question. I'm going to still try to treat folks the way I look at what we see in them Gospels. It don't matter to me if it happened or not. It really don't, because I think it's more important to just be good to other people. When you see someone who is figuratively the woman caught in adultery, be the guy that says, let him to be without sin cast the first stone. Be the one to stand up for him. And sometimes you got to turn tables over in the temple too. And if you read that in the original Greek, you'll see he went upside their heads. And I'm not trying to promote religion or anything. I'm just simply saying, using it as some would call it a Christ consciousness, where you just say, love your neighbor as yourself. And just treat folks right. Is it really that doggone hard? I don't think so. But now I'm complaining. I know you had a question, Mallory. I missed you.
I realized you'd already answered it.
Already answered?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your help. Yes.
And I see a lot of personal in your work, and a lot of immediacy. And so I'd love to hear you speak about your emotional feeling space while you're working.
Oh, well, it depends. I just got some music bumping, usually. I work with a kind of reckless abandon. I mean, after I moved into the studio, I had been working in my living room for years. I had to have the whole house repainted because there was just paint everywhere. But I just try to really just have fun. I really do try to have fun when I work. And it's also a physical release. It's energetic. I try to be joyous. Even if I'm painting a tragic topic, I still try to find joy in my heart. That at least I'm here to be able to talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much. Just no more questions, Mallory. Turn it over to Miss Edson. Thank you. And those of you who didn't get do the homework, you're in detention.